Welcome to The Explainer. All right, let's talk about something wild. There's this hidden world inside you that's pulling the strings on way more than you think. We're going to dive into this incredible, almost sci-fi connection between your gut and your brain. And yeah, it could be controlling everything from how you feel right now to the number you see on the scale.
Okay, let's kick things off with a fact that's, well, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. The next time you walk into a room, just remember this. Only about 10% of all the cells that just entered are actually human, are actually you. The other 90%? Yeah, those belong to the trillions of tiny microbes living on and inside your body. You're not just a person, you're a walking, talking ecosystem.
And this massive community, we're talking bacteria, fungi, the whole shebang, it has a name. It's called the microbiome. For the longest time, we just figured these guys were, just freeloaders along for the ride. But what scientists are discovering now is just mind-blowing. It seems this inner world, especially the crew living in your gut, might actually be the puppet master.
So that leads to a pretty wild question, right? If we've got all these passengers, what happens when they decide to grab the steering wheel? Well, let's find out, because the answer could completely change how you think about, well, you.
Okay, so check this out. This brings us to a really cool experiment. Scientists took two groups of mice, and they couldn't have been more different. You had one group that was super timid, cautious, shy. And then you had the other group, total daredevils, bold, adventurous, the life of the party.
And then they did something pretty radical. First, they gave both groups of mice antibiotics to completely wipe out all their gut bacteria. Just gone, a totally clean slate. And then came the swap. They took the gut microbiome from the adventurous mice and gave it to the shy ones. And, you guessed it, the shy mice's microbiome went into the bold mice.
The result? It was absolutely staggering. I mean, no one saw this coming. The shy mice, they suddenly became bold explorers. And the bold mice, they turned into these timid, anxious little things. Their personalities completely flipped. It proved that so much of their behavior wasn't just coming from their brains, it was coming from their guts.
So, okay, that just raises a massive question, doesn't it? How on earth is that even possible? How can a bunch of bacteria in your gut send messages, like whispers, all the way up to your brain? Well, it turns out they're not just whispering into the void. They've got their own private superhighway.
And a huge piece of the puzzle comes down to this one number. Get this, a whopping 95% of your body's serotonin, that famous feel-good chemical that controls your mood, happiness, all that stuff, it's not made in your brain. Nope, it's made in your gut.
And this suddenly explains something that's always been a bit of a mystery, right? Why does so many antidepressants, the ones that work on serotonin, so often cause stomach problems? Well, it's because they're hitting the factory. They're working right where most of that serotonin actually lives, in your gut. And look, this isn't just one simple connection. It's a full-on communication network with multiple channels. You've got a direct physical line, this huge nerve called the vagus nerve. Then, the gut bacteria are literally manufacturing brain chemicals themselves, like serotonin and dopamine. They can even send signals through your immune system. It's an incredibly complex and sophisticated system.
And we've seen this play out in other studies too. Scientists took some depressed mice and fed them a good bacteria. And what happened? The mice started acting less depressed. They even swam longer in a stress test, which is a sign of resilience. But here's the kicker. They did the experiment again, but this time they cut the vagus nerve, that main communication highway. And poof, the positive effect completely disappeared. It was like cutting the phone line between the gut and the brain. The call just couldn't get through.
But here's the thing. This isn't a one-way street. It's a two-way conversation. Your brain talks back to your gut. And when you're stressed out, it's not whispering sweet nothings. It's basically screaming into the phone.
Ever had that butterflies in your stomach feeling when you get nervous? Yeah, that's this in action. That's your brain kicking into fight or flight mode. Instantly, it starts rerouting blood and energy away from your digestive system and sends it to your muscles so you can, run from that tiger. The problem is, this sudden shift basically puts your gut on starvation rations, which weakens its defenses and can totally change who's living down there.
This all happens through a powerful chain reaction called the HPA axis. The easiest way to think about it is like your body's internal fire alarm. Your brain spots a threat, real or imagined, and pulls the alarm. That sets off a hormonal domino effect that ends with your adrenal glands pumping out cortisol, the big-time stress hormone. And that flood of cortisol, it directly impacts the environment in your gut.
And if that alarm is ringing all the time, chronic stress, the damage really starts to add up. The wall of your gut can get weaker,
Some people call it leaky gut. This can make the immune cells that live there super jumpy and overreactive. In fact, some scientists think this could be a trigger for things like new food allergies and chronic inflammation.
Okay, so if our brain and our gut are locked in this kind of dramatic, constant conversation, the big question is, how do we get in the middle and make sure it's a good one? Well, it probably won't surprise you to hear that a big part of the answer starts with what you eat. Let me tell you about another study that is just jaw-dropping. Researchers found a set of human twins, where one was obese and one was lean. They took gut bacteria from each twin and put them into mice that had been raised in a totally sterile bubble, so no gut bacteria of their own. And check this out. The mice that got the bacteria from the obese twin got fat. The ones that got bacteria from the lean twin stayed skinny, even when they ate the exact same diet. It was a slam-dunk case that these microbes are playing a huge role in our metabolism.
See, it turns out your gut is like an office with different departments. You've got all these families of bacteria, and each one has a special job. For example, you have the Bacteroides family. These guys are superstars at breaking down fiber and are often found in lean people. Then you have Akkermansia, who are like the security team, making sure the gut wall stays strong. So you really want to think of them as your internal A-team, and your job is to recruit and support the best players.
And there are two main ways we can support our A-team. First, there are probiotics. Think of these as bringing in new, talented hires. They're the actual live good bacteria. Then you have prebiotics. These are the food for the good bacteria you already have. It's like buying your best employees a really nice lunch to keep their morale high and make sure they stick around. So here's the big takeaway, right? You actually have a ton of power to influence this whole gut-brain conversation. Eating a whole bunch of different high-fiber foods, that's feeding your best players. Adding in fermented foods like yogurt, that's bringing in those new recruits. And even simple stuff like getting enough sleep and managing your stress, that protects the whole system and helps you build a healthier, happier microbiome.
This connection is so powerful, so promising, that it's sparking a whole new field of science. Researchers have actually coined a new term for it, psychobiotics. The idea is that these are specific, beneficial microbes that one day a doctor might prescribe to help improve your mental health. I mean, think about it. A probiotic for your brain.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative thought to chew on. For centuries, when we've talked about mental health, we've looked in one place, the brain. But what if the next massive leap forward in mental wellness isn't found in our heads at all? What if it's found by understanding and taking care of the trillions of microbes living inside our gut? We're just starting to have this conversation, and frankly, it could change everything.